You are now listening to Mark's Unexplained World by Mark the Medium, available on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Prime, Podbean, and most other podcast platforms. Tonight's episode is about the Lonely Hearts Killers. So it's over to you now, Mark.
"36-year-old Raymond Martinez Fernandez and 30-year-old Martha Jewel Beck were an American serial killer couple who were convicted of one murder, but are known to have committed two more, and were suspected of having killed up to 20 victims during a 2-year killing spree between the years of 1947 and 1949. They became known jointly as the Lonely Hearts Killers, mainly due to them meeting their unsuspecting victims through the personal ads that were posted in newspaper Lonely Hearts columns. Fernandez and Beck's dark and twisted love story is one of the most depraved murder sprees in the United States criminal history books, which in turn inspired many films and television shows that are based on this case. After the couple's arrest in Michigan in 1949, and during the interrogation, Raymond Fernandez confessed to 17 murders all over the country, but he later tried to retract his confession, telling police that he was trying to protect his partner in crime, Martha Beck. However, the real reason for the confession was that he knew the state of Michigan did not have the death penalty, and so he used the confession as a way to stay put. The trial is what led to the national press to name both Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck the Lonely Hearts Killers. Greetings, Unexplainers. Thank you for tuning in once again and listening to this folie à deux episode of Mark's Unexplained World. My name is Mark Hughes. I'm a psychic medium, a ufologist, a true crime buff, and an all-round strange guy. And just to give you a better idea of who I am and what I do, every Monday night I do a podcast on the various subjects under the Unexplained banner. These include ufology, hauntings, disasters, and all sorts of paranormal phenomena, including true crime, unsolved crime, and missing people. So, if you are listening to this show on YouTube, please give us a review and a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel. And if you are listening on any other podcast platform, again, give us a like and a follow. In this episode, I'm going to tell you about the misadventurous love story surrounding the Lonely Hearts Killers. And this week's necessary disclaimer. This story is a tale that sadly involves multiple murders, including a young child, so may prove upsetting to some. Listener discretion is advised. Also, all opinions and comments are strictly my own, but the facts of the case still remain. I also apologise if I pronounce anything incorrectly. My English, although it is my first and only language, fails me often. My French, however, is even worse. But anyway, back to the story. According to Wikipedia, a Lonely Hearts Killer, who can also go under the name of a want ad killer, is a criminal who commits murder by contacting a potential victim who has either posted or replied to an advertisement by a newspaper classified ad or a personal or Lonely Hearts ad. The actual motivations for these criminals do vary. Some of the crimes may have involved a simple robbery gone wrong, an elaborate insurance fraud scheme, sexual violence or rape, or any other several ritualised pathological impulses, for example like necrophilia, mutilation, or even cannibalism. There have, of course, been cases where murder is not the original intent, but becomes a byproduct of rape or another type of conflict. And in some cases, murder is committed to simply cover up the original crime. Some Lonely Hearts killers, on the other hand, are actually serial killers who, if you like, are in disguise and use this method of targeting victims exclusively when or if it suits them. So, who exactly were the Lonely Hearts killers? Well, Raymond Martinez Fernandez was born in the territory of Hawaii to Spanish parents on the 17th of December 1914. Shortly after Raymond Fernandez was born, the family left the territory of Hawaii and moved to Bridgeport in Connecticut. When he was a teenager, Raymond Fernandez went to work on his uncle's farm in Spain. He then got married to a local young woman named Encarnacion Robles, and they had 4 children together. However, he was not exactly the best of fathers, mainly due to him abandoning both his wife and children later in his adult life. Later, during World War II, Raymond Fernandez served in the Spanish Merchant Navy and worked with the British intelligence services. While he was on his way back to the United States, he met with an accident on the ship in which a steel hatch fell onto his head. And as a result of this mishap, Raymond Fernandez ended up spending 3 months in hospital with a fractured skull. This all happened when the ship was near a Caribbean island called Curaçao, or Curacao, is that Curaçao? This fracture meant that the frontal lobe was affected, with some psychologists and criminologists theorising that it was this that probably caused his perverse social and sexual behaviour later on in his life. I am inclined to believe that as a serious possibility myself. Brain injuries can cause all sorts of problems. Upon Raymond Fernandez's release from the hospital, he then decided to steal some clothing, which was a really stupid thing to do, because he was then subsequently imprisoned for 1 year. So whilst Raymond Fernandez was inside, what did he do, I hear you ask? Well, there were trades he could have learnt or sports he could have taken part in. However, Raymond Fernandez decided to be different and learn something else while he was incarcerated. Can you guess what it is?
No.
Well, he decided to learn and accept the belief in voodoo and black magic from his cellmate, later claiming that these dark, mystical powers gave him an irresistible power and charm over women. On a couple of short but interesting side notes here, voodoo is an African diasporic religion that developed between the 16th and 19th centuries in Haiti, which is on the island of Hispaniola, sorry, my apologies to everybody in Spain, in the Caribbean Sea. It arose through a process of syncretism, the amalgamation or attempted amalgamation of different religions, cultures or schools of thought in this case between several traditional religions of West and Central Africa and Roman Catholicism. There is no central authority in control of this religion, and much diversity exists among practitioners who are also known as voodooists, voodooisants, or serviteurs. But black magic, on the other hand, has been traditionally referred to as the use of supernatural powers and magic for evil or self-purpose. The links and interactions between black magic and religion are in fact many and varied. Beyond black magic's historical persecution by Christianity and its inquisitions, there are links between religious and black magic rituals. Author A.E. Waite, during his period of scholarship, provided a comprehensive account of black magic practices, rituals and traditions in the Book of Ceremonial Magic, which was printed back in 1911. It takes all sorts to make a world, doesn't it? After this first short break, in part 2, we will look at a short bio of Martha Beck and how she and Raymond Fernandez started their killing spree.
This show is brought to you courtesy of Neil Packer and the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre. Find them online at www.hauntedresearchcentre.com or at 9 to 11 Regent Street, Hinckley, LE10 1AW. Open on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. for guided tours of the haunted rooms at just £3 per person. Booking is essential at all times, and over 16s only, please, unless accompanied by an adult. The haunted rooms are extremely haunted, and paranormal activity could and has taken place at any time. Some areas and particular objects or items can be quite scary and unnerving. Membership is available for £25 to qualify for selective offers. And why not download the app, available on both iOS and Android for only $3.99, to keep up to date with what is coming up at the centre.
Thanks for listening to Mark's Unexplained World. If you are interested in parapsychology, quantum sciences, and true encounters with the other side, you may wish to visit The Weird Walk Home. That's my show on YouTube. Also, stay tuned, because After Dark with Tilly and Mark is creeping your way in June. Additionally, if you are interested in weird sciences, you may like to purchase my brand new book on Amazon. That would be Weird Time by Tim R. Swartz. It features lots of strange explanations and encounters with time from myself and other notable names like Lon Strickler and more. Thanks for listening.
Martha Jewel Beck, who was originally named Martha Jewel Seabrook, was born on the 6th of May 1920 in Milton, in Florida. Allegedly due to a glandular problem, Martha Beck was considerably overweight and went through puberty at a very premature age. I should point out here that back then glandular problems were considered a common explanation for obesity and many other weight issues. After she finished school, Martha Beck studied nursing, but unfortunately, due to her weight problems, she had a lot of trouble finding worthwhile work, so she found a stopgap job as an undertaker's assistant, preparing the female bodies for burial. After finally quitting the undertaker's assistant job, Martha Beck then moved to California, where she worked in the United States Army Hospital as a nurse. While Martha Beck lived in California, she, after a few failed relationships, eventually became pregnant. However, the father of the baby refused to marry her. So, single, pregnant and unemployed, at a time when a social stigma existed concerning children born out of wedlock, Martha Beck decided to return back to Florida. When she got back to Florida, Martha Beck, in order to rid herself of the having a baby out of wedlock stigma, informed people that the father of the child had been killed in a Pacific campaign. And in response to this news, the town not only mourned Martha Beck's loss, but an obituary was published in the local newspaper. Shortly after her daughter was born, Martha Beck again became pregnant by a Pensacola bus driver named Alfred Beck. In order that Martha Beck did not have to go through the same baby out of wedlock stigma again, the couple decided to get married quickly and then divorce 6 months later, after which time Martha Beck gave birth to her second child, a son. Lonely, unemployed, and a single mother of 2 young children, Martha Beck's life consisted mainly of being able to escape into a fantasy world by buying romance magazines and novels or watching romantic movies. Eventually, she found employment at the Pensacola Hospital for Children. And in 1947, Martha Beck placed a Lonely Hearts ad in the local paper, to which Raymond Fernandez responded. On an interesting side note here, the Lonely Hearts ads have been flourishing in Britain since 1695. When a shrewd pamphlet editor concluded that love could be sold just as easily as any other type item of merchandise. The first Lonely Heart ad to appear in a pamphlet was by a 30-year-old man with, and I quote,
"A very good estate in search of some good young gentlewoman that has a fortune of £3,000 or thereabouts."
Proving that the commercialising of matchmaking was well suited to the mercenary business of the 17th century marriage. A slew of ads quickly followed, with almost all the ads being posted by men wanting to hear from young, rich women. In response to Martha Beck's Lonely Hearts ad, Raymond Fernandez came to Florida from New York City to stay with her briefly and then returned back to NYC. While he stayed with Martha Beck, she told everyone that they were going to be married. Martha Beck was then, without warning, unexpectedly fired from her job as a nurse at the Pensacola Hospital for Children. So she packed up her life and then, along with her 2 children, she moved in with Raymond Fernandez in New York City. There, Martha Beck doted on him, and Raymond Fernandez, feeling very safe and secure in the relationship, confessed to her all about his life of crime. The language of love. It was at this point that Martha Beck decided to give up both her children to the Salvation Army and then fully commit everything she had to Raymond Fernandez.
Seriously?
Oh, yes. The reason for her giving up her children is very unclear, but some reports do say that she may have been possibly influenced by her love of romance novels. But one thing is for certain, is that she was definitely influenced by her new love for Raymond Fernandez. I think it's safe to say that the Fernandez and Beck relationship status was definitely complicated, or one-sided. Martha had not only committed everything she had for him, but she also doted on his every whim. Raymond, however, continued to answer Lonely Hearts ads, with Martha often posing as his sister, claiming that he was only a tenant and that the house belonged to her. Martha Beck also convinced some victims that she lived alone and that her brother, Fernandez, was only an occasional guest. This lie allowed Raymond Fernandez to keep his public respectability, and it made his victims more comfortable knowing that there was someone else, another woman at least, in the house with them. And not only that, but this comfortable feeling meant that the victims would often agree to stay with the pair at their home. Martha Beck, however, was an extremely jealous woman who went to great lengths to make sure that Raymond Fernandez never got his oats, or to put it politely, she made sure that he and his intended never consummated their relationship. However, on the odd chance that Raymond Fernandez did have sex with another woman, Martha Beck would then subject them both to a violent temper. In early January of 1949, Raymond Fernandez, whilst Martha Beck was still posing as his sister, got engaged to a woman called Janet Fay and moved into his apartment in Michigan. However, when Martha Beck discovered them both in bed together, she murdered Janet Fay by beating her around the head with a hammer, after which Raymond Fernandez decided to join in with the murder and strangle her. After some time, the pair were forced to flee to Michigan when Janet Fay's family grew suspicious of her murder. The couple then settled in Wyoming Township, just outside of Grand Rapids. In the February of 1949, Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck met a 28-year-old widow called Delphine Downing. Delphine Downing had a 2-year-old daughter who came with her to meet Fernandez and Beck. At some point during their friendship, Delphine Downing became upset, so Raymond Fernandez gave her some sleeping pills to help calm her nerves. Delphine Downing becoming upset caused her daughter to become distressed, so much so that Martha Beck started to become irritated by her crying. This continuous crying from Delphine Downing's young 2-year-old daughter became a constant distraction for Martha Beck, so much so that she felt the only way to stop it was by slowly choking her. And although this choking did not actually kill the 2-year-old, Raymond Fernandez did worry that the bruises around her neck would arouse suspicion from her mother, Delphine Downing, when she woke up. So, like any psychopath worth his salt, Raymond Fernandez shot and killed Delphine Downing while she was still unconscious due to the sleeping pills he had given to her earlier. He figured that if he killed the 28-year-old mother, she could not report them both to the authorities. But this was not the end of the horrific crime. Eventually, Delphine Downing's young 2-year-old daughter's crying became such an irritant to Martha Beck that she decided the only way to stop the tears was to drown her. Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck then decided to stay in the house for a few days, and after the rigor mortis of the 2 dead bodies had set in and the decomposing started to get a bit ripe, they then decided to bury both Delphine Downing and her 2-year-old daughter down in the basement of the house. The only thing that actually concerned Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck is that they were worried the neighbours may have already reported the mother and daughter missing. The couple were, of course, quite right to worry, because that is exactly what the neighbours did, and on the 1st of March 1949, the Wyoming Township Police arrived at the home and arrested both Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck. I should point out here that there are some sources that do say they were arrested on the 28th of February 1949. After this second short break, in part 3, we will look at the interrogation and the trial of Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck.
Fright Nights was established in 1999 as the first company in the world to offer overnight ghost hunt experiences to the general public, pioneering paranormal events since the last century. Fright Nights operate at hundreds of the UK's most haunted and exclusive venues. All events have their own team of experienced paranormal investigators, mediums and psychics. They have a VIP members club for regular returning guests, offering loyalty discounts and exclusive invitation-only events. They can also host private events for your family and friends. You can contact them on 07852 998 628 or email them at office@frightnights.co.uk. or take a look at their website at www.frightnights.co.uk, where you can see the many locations they investigate and learn about them and the opportunities they have available. Hundreds of ghost hunters join Fright Nights every month for the most thrilling ghost hunting experiences they'll never forget. If you haven't been on a ghost hunt before, then why not join them to see what it's all about? Why not visit their social media sites for up-to-date information on all the places they visit and to see what's coming up in the future? They look forward to seeing you all soon. Fright Nights Ghost Hunting Events. Remember, only the original will do.
After they were arrested, both Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck were brought to the Kent County DA's office, where they were questioned and interrogated by the police and the district attorney. Perhaps because they were already resigned to their fate, neither Raymond or Martha asked for any attorney, nor did they make any attempt to avoid being questioned. Raymond Fernandez actually said to the investigators, and I quote, "I'm no average killer." Martha Beck then said, and I quote,
"The electric chair scares me."
with the promise that they told the truth, that if they told the truth and cooperated with investigators, Raymond Fernandez could be out of prison in 6 years with time off for good behaviour. So the couple told the police everything about their dark story of deception and murder, and then signed a 73-page confession in the presence of Kent Kent County DA Roger O. McMahon, who assured them that they would never be turned over to the New York Police Department. Both Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck were aware there was no death penalty in Michigan, and so were content to remain in Kent County rather than be extradited back to New York to face charges for the Janet Fay killing. During the police interrogation, Raymond Fernandez also confessed to having committed 17 murders all over the country, but later he attempted to retract this confession, telling police that he said this because he was trying to protect Martha Beck and that he also knew Michigan did not have the death penalty, so used this confession as a way to stay put. Both the pair continuously and vehemently denied committing these 17 murders that were attributed to them. During the week of the 8th of March back in 1949, after several intense phone calls from a man named Thomas Dewey, the New York governor, to the state of Michigan, a deal was cut with the Kent County prosecutors. They would waive the criminal charges for the Downing murders, meaning the 28-year-old widow called Delphine and her 2-year-old daughter, and permit New York to extradite Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck to face charges just on the Janet Fay murder. So the couple were both then extradited to New York. The reason for this deal was quite simple. Michigan did not have an electric chair. The local newspaper headlines at the time read, and I quote, "Reveal Lonely Heart's blood money dealings,"
"Heart's killer explodes at attorney,"
and "Fernandez tells strange love story." These headlines built an image in the public's eye that the two defendants, both Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck, were already guilty, and trial was just a mere formality. Due to the display of the media's bias in this case, a cursory read of the press headline coverage, both before and during the murder trial, reveals an exception and even a demand that both Beck and Fernandez receive the death penalty. Or in other words, the pressure for them to die was paramount. The day-by-day revelations about this extraordinary couple had the New York City's press and media working overtime. Unfortunately, Martha Beck's enormous size was the subject of never-ending speculation and ridicule by the press, who estimated her weight to be somewhere between 90 to over 136 kilos, or 200 to over 300 pounds. This constant derision and mockery caused Martha Beck to write a series of tearful and angry letters from her prison cell to the local media, complaining of the unfair treatment she received from newspapers like the Daily News and the New York Mirror. She said, and I quote,
"I'm still a human, feeling every blow inside, even though I have the ability to hide my feelings and laugh."
She continues, and again, I quote,
"But that doesn't say my heart isn't breaking from the insults and humiliation of being talked about as I am. Oh yes, I wear a cloak of laughter."
Janet Fay's murder was the only one for which Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck were tried. Their murder trial took place during the summer of 1949 in the Bronx Criminal Court, where the salacious testimony of abnormal sexual practices caused a near riot amongst the courtroom spectators. At the trial, Martha Beck claimed to have been raped by her brother and subsequently beaten by her mother. And, as a young teenager, Martha Beck also claimed that she ran away to the home of an uncle in another town, but she was found and returned home again after just 24 hours. They were both tried and convicted for the murder of Janet Fay and sentenced to the electric chair. Soon after, they were both remanded to Sing Sing prison. And on a short, late but interesting side note, the Sing Sing Correctional Facility is a maximum security prison operated by the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision in the village of Ossining, New York, United States. It is to the north of Midtown Manhattan on the east bank of the Hudson River. It holds about 1,700 inmates and housed the execution chamber for the state of NYC until the abolition of capital punishment in New York in 1977. The name Sing Sing was derived from the Sint Sink Native American tribe from whom the land was purchased in 1685 and was formerly the name of the village. In 1970, the prison's name was changed to the Ossining Correctional Facility, but it reverted back to its original name in 1985. Although Raymond Fernandez believed he was trying to protect Martha Beck, she was incredibly open about her motives. In her last interview for the press, she said, and I quote,
"What does it matter who is to blame? My story is a love story, but only those tortured with love can understand what I mean. I was pictured as a fat, unfeeling woman. I am not unfeeling, stupid, or moronic. In the history of the world, how many crimes have been attributed to love?"
On the 8th of March in 1951, both Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck were executed at the Sing Sing prison for the murder of Janet Fay. And although the police had Raymond Fernandez confess of the deaths of at least 17 other people, there was no way to know if that number was indeed accurate, or if he was even telling the truth.
Thank you all for taking the time out to listen to this episode of Mark's Unexplained World. In our next episode, show number 102, we are going to be looking at the Camp Von Dorn slaughter. The Camp Von Dorn slaughter was a radical hoax popularised in the self-published book The Slaughter, an American Atrocity by the author Carol Case in 1998. The case alleged that some 1,200 African American soldiers of the United States Army's 364th Infantry Regiment were killed by white American soldiers at Camp Van Dorn in the June of 1943. Part 1 of the book is purported history of the event, and Part 2 describes the event as a fictionalised account. No hard evidence has ever been found to support Case's allegations, despite an investigation that lasted more than a year by the Department of Defense. Over the years, the event is still talked about by conspiracy theorists all over the world.
This show was written and researched by myself, Mark Hughes, and proofread and edited by Linda Hughes. The pronunciations of all the names of places, though, again, was all mine. The actors in this episode were Mark Hughes, Linda Hughes, Denise Poolar and Tilly Treadwell from the Weird Walk Home podcast. with special thanks to Neil Packer and the staff at the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre in Hinckley, and a big thank you to everyone for listening. We never run out of ideas here at the office for Mark's Unexplained World podcast, but if you know of any other intriguing stories under the Unexplained banner, including ufology, hauntings, disasters and any other sort of paranormal phenomena, including true crime, unsolved crime and missing people, just drop me a direct message and I will see what I can do. I will also include the name of the person who suggested the idea in the end credits of the podcast. And again, just to add, if you are listening to this show on YouTube, please give us a review and a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you are listening on any other of the many podcast platforms, again, give us a like and a follow. A thank you in advance. Mark's Unexplained World, because there's more to the paranormal than meets the third eye. And remember guys, keep it real, because being real is better than being perfect. This show and all its contents are covered by basic copyright of Mark the Medium.